Hey, Dennis Morrison here. I have what will probably be the last update on the earthquake that struck here in Michigan over the weekend on Cinco de Mayo Day, and I had been wondering if there was a fault line that lay under Michigan, because I had in anything I've ever read about Michigan history, and I've read a lot, never mentioned anything about fault lines, but it appears there was one, and this article that I'm going to share with you was from the MLive news site. Dateline, Kalamazoo, Michigan. 20 years ago, a Michigan State University scientist wrote a paper suggesting there might be a geological fault line in the southeast corner of Kalamazoo County, and the earthquake seems to have proved him right. It appears the fault that caused Saturday's quake is part of the same fault involved in the 1947 quake in Coldwater, said MSU geosciences professor Kazuya Fujita. I always thought there was something there because of variations in the magnetic field, Fujita said about southeast Kalamazoo County. When I heard the quake was in Kalamazoo, I figured that was probably it, the fault line. Based on data collected by the U.S. Geological Survey, the fault involved the May 2nd quake matches almost perfectly with Fujita's theory, said Chris Schmidt, a geoscientist for Western Michigan University. The quake's epicenter was in Scotts, a rural farming community about 12 miles southeast of Kalamazoo. It looks like the fault line goes between Coldwater and Kalamazoo, Schmidt said. If it goes north of that, we don't know, and we're not sure if it goes further south. A big reason for the mystery is the fault line is about 4 miles underground. Don't bother looking for it on the ground surface, Schmidt said. You won't find it. However, based on the U.S. Geological Survey data, Schmidt said it appears the May 2nd earthquake involved a strike-slip fault, a vertical fracture where the blocks move horizontally. At 12:23 p.m., the northeast side of the fault suddenly shifted northwest, while the southwest side slid southeast, releasing tension between the blocks that had been building for years, Schmidt said. It was probably a movement of only a few feet, although that's a very off-the-wall guess, Schmidt said. The movement triggered a 4.2 magnitude earthquake, felt in 5 states in southern Ontario. Like other scientists, Schmidt and Fujita said the quake appears to be the result of natural forces. This wasn't a man-made quake, Schmidt said. It's an old fault under strain. There's periodic buildups and releases. It's like stretching a rubber band where it eventually snaps. The strain is created, he said, by the fact that the North American continent, or at least part of this continent, shifts about 2 centimeters west each year. That's a continuation of the movement started hundreds of millions of years ago when the continent broke free from Africa. The May 2nd quake provides a data point from predicting future seismic activity along the fault line, Schmidt also said. There are historical records that make reference to an earthquake that occurred in nearby Climax in 1883. 64 years later was Michigan's largest quake on record, the 1947 quake in Coldwater. Now 68 years after the Coldwater event is another quake apparently along the same fault line. So in 65 years or so, we might So in 65 years or later, we might, might get another, Schmidt said. The quake also means future permit applications for drilling in southeast Kalamazoo County, and we'll get a closer look at Hal Fitch, Director of Michigan Department of Environmental Quality's Office of Oil, Gas, and Minerals. In the past few years, much has been made of the seeming connection between earthquakes and hydraulic fracturing, also known as fracking, to extract oil or gas. The problem isn't that fracking itself. Fitch and others experts say rather scientists have determined earthquakes can be triggered by high-pressure injection wells used to dispose of wastewater that is a byproduct of fracking. Such human-induced quakes have been seen in Colorado, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Ohio, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. In the case of the May 2nd quake, there are currently no high-pressure injection wells nearby to the newfound fault line. In terms of the future, we do consider proximity to the fault and the past seismic activity in evaluating permit applications in this area, and will continue to do so, Fitch said in an email to the Kalamazoo Gazette. The occurrence of the May 2nd earthquake would not make us hesitate to issue a permit for a well that would be hydraulically fractured, because hydraulic fracturing itself is not generally associated with induced seismicity, he said, which is a crock of shit. If we receive an application for an injection well in this area in the future, the quake occurrence does give us more information that we would use in our evaluation. That's the article. I have a couple points in it with which I have a little bit of difficulty. Number one, that millions and millions and millions of years ago we broke free of, or what would be the United States broke free from Pangea, so to say, because we weren't, the continent, the waters, the oceans, the earth itself was not here yet then, because it had not been created yet. Creationists say that the earth was made by God between 6,000 and 12,000 years ago. I say to that also hogwash. There is ample evidence that the earth is much older than what current fundamentalists are willing to admit, but it's not a point of contention because it's not a point of salvation. And the second point I have a problem with is that fracking does not induce earthquakes. Take a look at Oklahoma and those southern states and southwestern and southern states that are having an incredible amount of seismic activity. I don't believe the Michigan one had anything to do with it, but there's a direct correlation between fracking and the uptick in earthquakes that are hitting states like Oklahoma, Kansas, and these states where a lot of fracking is going on. They make it, they deceive us all they want, but you don't really need to be an expert to look at the facts and realize what's happening in those places. Anyways, that's the update. Thanks for stopping by. God bless.